Never saw it coming, and it brought me to my knees. Thought that I was something till I met reality. Thought were fantasy. And then light from the dark, you broke it like the morning. There's nothing like the dawn that came that day. With a shot to my heart, you broke what drove the old me. I love you, and I'll follow where you lead. I never saw it coming, and it snuck right up on me. Came without a warning, and it brought me to believe. I thought it was so bliss, that hope rolled in like waves all over me. And you freed me with mercy to witness to this goodness faithfully. Light from the dark, you broke in like the morning. There's nothing like the dawn that came that day. With a shot to my heart, you broke what drove the old me. I love you, and I'll follow where you lead. Took me from the shepherd fields and poured oil upon my head. I saw giants fall on battlefields and kingdoms filled with dread. You fed me in the wilderness, put a song upon my heart. You taught me peace in heaviness, how to sing into the dark. But tonight, it's like you're so far away. But you're not the one to blame. Your goodness will never fade. But tonight Sunsets over palaces keep a rain upon your gaze. 'Cause beauty blinds the best of men, and the consequence remains. It took me down the longest road, kept me deep into the night, and it cost me more than I can know, and I still can't hear the cries. Tonight, it's like it's so far away. You're not the one to blame. Your goodness will never fade. But tonight, it's like I can't feel a thing. You're not the one to blame. My king is the one who saves.
Gonna get you, bank gonna take you, IRS gonna get you, they're looking right at you, better go digital, crypto. These credit card debt gonna get you, bank gonna take you, IRS gonna get you, they're looking right at you. Better go digital, crypto.
Happy Sunday. Thanks for being here, everybody. And as always, my Solomon Report best friend is with me, Mr. NPC.
Many meows.
Glad you're here. How are you?
I am very well.
Well, I haven't talked to you for 2 weeks, so there's probably a few new things that's gone on in our life. Anything new that you want to share?
Well, I hadn't really thought about it much.
So
Just
not
been
really.
studying a lot. I mean, honestly, but work's kept me really busy. Oh yeah. So I did join a play, so I've been doing play practice. But I think I might have mentioned that. I'm a bank robber in a Carol
Oh,
Burnett skit.
I don't remember hearing about this, so that's fun.
Yeah, it's kind of weird too because the character's name is Dan, and that's reminding me of the tribe of Dan, which is what I'm also researching. So it was just a weird coincidence, but well, yeah, planning another relay type event.
A
Did some
relay.
I did some kayaking, community floats. I guess I have done a lot. I'm just so busy that I don't. It's like once it's over, I try to not think about it anymore because I'm just overwhelmed as it is.
Well, I think the last time we went live was before the gun show, or after. We didn't go live after the gun show, did we? I don't remember.
Remember you mentioned it, where I read about it on the YouTube. I think I saw you had a table with some
Yes.
silver and crypto stuff. Yeah. So that's what I know about it.
Yeah, so anyone who was paying attention saw that I asked, should I buy this gun, this handgun, that is a 1995 Desert Eagle that allegedly has never been shot. So you made a point, make sure you can shoot it. I do have the seller's personal information. He goes to the gun shows, every gun show, so I'll even see him at the next gun show. So I'd be surprised if he would give me something that, well, I'd be surprised if if it's never been shot, he wouldn't know, right? So if I shoot, if it's not able to be shot for some reason, the guy would probably, he'll be at the next gun show and we can chat about that. But I imagine he's had it looked through by a professional, because he's a professional gun dealer. He's not just like a hack guy that just sells guns on the side. The cool thing is if you buy at the gun show, I would have had to go through a background check. We didn't do that when I did buy this gun, by the way. So I was jumping the gun, but I did ultimately
Oh wow,
finally
that was a great pun.
I did finally buy it because he came to me in where I live, and because I couldn't buy it from him on a Sunday at the gun show, he didn't take Cash App or Venmo. And that maybe is for the best, because I don't have, we should never have to do background checks. Now, I would pass a background check. So that doesn't matter. I can go do a background check and it'll be no problem. Right? If somebody says, well, I hear you own this Desert Eagle, we want you to do it. Okay, I'll do it, whatever. But we shouldn't have to do those background checks simply because that actually goes against our Second Amendment. And so what people do is, if you're a buyer and a seller and a dealer or whatever, I can buy and sell to you and whatever, but if it's over that $10,000 mark, that's when you have to report it for IRS stuff. But as far as the background checks is if you're an actual dealer in a building, then you're required to do the background checks. Then you're required to, probably see ID and do all those things, and make a copy of it and put it into some kind of system. But here in Billings, Montana, or in all of Montana, you don't have to register a gun. So for me to go and buy a gun is legal and lawful in this state from whoever I want to buy it from, because I don't even have to register it. I can conceal and open carry without a permit. And so this is a really great situation, because the less we put our information out there, and I don't mind putting my information out there, because in a way, because I know that my information is good and solid. But what I mind is putting it into a database where it doesn't need to be, because that's really what it's for. It's to put you in a database, because we know the people that probably aren't going to pass a background check aren't trying to get them done. They're buying other ways. So anyway, in the state of Montana, it is legal and lawful to carry without registering, to carry without concealed permit, and so we have a lot of 2A rights here that we're supposed to have. So anyway, I did purchase legally this particular handgun. It is a 50 caliber Desert Eagle. I had a few people say, is it a 45? It looks kind of small. It's not when you hold it. It's a very big and heavy gun, but I've shot them before. It's a pretty smooth shot. it doesn't kick like people say. I've shot the 44 Magnum. That has a bigger kick than a 50 caliber Desert Eagle. And there's some mechanics to it that I don't fully understand that make it so you can shoot such a big caliber bullet through a handgun. So anyway, it's got some, I'm going to learn more about it because I'm more eager to, but I'll tell you, it caught my eye so fast when I was walking through the whole place. My daughter Evelyn was with me, and she wanted to like tour the whole building, and I sat there and I had stopped right immediately, and I had to look at this gun and talk to the guy about it for a while. So very exciting for me, and also an investment, because it's, you guys, when we talk about our investments, guns and ammo are also an investment like gold and silver and cryptocurrency, because they don't lose their value. I could turn this around and probably sell it for $1,000 more than I bought it. I'm not going to, but if push came to shove, I could sell it for at least what I bought it for. But the price isn't going to go down by any means. In fact, a few years ago you could get this for $800, and now it's over $2,000. So anyway, I apparently got the vendor special. So there we have it. That's my news. That's my update.
Well, they are made of metal, and just like gold and silver, the political and economic climate can cause the price to fluctuate. So when something's scarce, the price does just go up. So
yeah, and there's not a lot of Desert Eagles out there for sale.
Well, there's people listening right now that live in countries that cannot get firearms at all. So something we take for granted.
Yes, we're still blessed, and we still have a lot of rights. And I have one more thing I wanted to mention. Speaking on that, I tried to plan a trip to Cancun because through our crypto company, I won an all expenses paid trip where they're going to pay for a hotel, where it's all expenses paid hotel, so you get food, drinks, whatever you want the whole time, and you don't have to throw out anything but tips, right? So I won that. And as I've been trying to buy tickets to go down there, I have not bowed down to the altar of Jabbo, as Brian from Truthflix says. I like how he says it, but I have not done that.
Exaggeration.
I have not done that, and so you are required to have a negative test to fly back into the States, but not out. So Delta Airlines will not make you do any kind of nasal swab to fly out, but they want a negative test to fly home. And if your test is a negative, you can be quarantined. And so I did buy a plane ticket. I did buy a plane ticket with insurance, though, because there's no one going to help me if I test positive and have to stay down there. There's no one going to be like, oh, I'll stay behind with you because you don't know anyone. I'll help you out. There's no one that's going to do that, because they're all going to say the same thing. Oh, I can't afford to stay behind. I can't afford to get stuck there or whatever. So the sad thing is I'd be totally on my own, and in a place I don't know anybody, if it were to turn out positive. So, and I don't want a jab thing, or I don't know, it's called a jab thing, whatever they call it. I wouldn't swab up my nose, even though I guess they do have ones where you can do it yourself. So like you could barely just touch your nose with it, but you don't know what kind of tests they're using. You don't know how many cycles they're running. If I could run the test myself, then I'd be totally fine with it. I'd be like, if I could do the swab and run the test and then it prints out a negative report, I'd be all for it. But yeah.
Yeah, I've heard in some cases I guess it depends on if it's a rapid one or not. But I hear a lot of inconsistency with how it's handled.
Otherwise, I wanted to mention this because you've got a lot of information that you've told me is coming together for you. From the Hill and from, I think, the Washington Compost, there's an article that a jabboed man passed away in Florida. His daughters are sharing their anger about it and urging people to get the jab. And here's why. So just to give you a little background, this man was 84 in a retirement home with COPD. But guess why his daughters are angry and are telling people to get the jab? Well, because somebody who didn't get the jab got him allegedly ill.
Oh, the others.
Yes, so it was the unjabbed that got this man of 84 years with COPD in a retirement home deathly ill. So in pretty infuriating and then the Hill put that out too. I mean, why even put that out as news? Why even put it up? Don't put it up. The Hill should just be like, this is garbage. I'm not going to propagate it. But they do. That's what they do. They're just as bad. The left and right pair, it's just, they're equally bad, two wings of the same bird. And they're all putting it out there as if it's news. So Just expect to continue to see more of that we are the problem for not bowing down at the altar of this that they worship. But back to you.
Yeah, I mean, the Dark Winter is probably going to be this one coming up, I would imagine. So let's kick things off with some earthquakes. So anyway, this is something we began covering weekly. So during the past 24 hours, there was one quake of magnitude 6.8. That's pretty intense. 3 quakes between 5.0 and 6.0, 34 quakes between 4.0 and 5.0, 124 quakes between 3 and 4, and 252 quakes between 2 and 3. There were also 453 quakes below magnitude 2.0, which people don't normally feel. It said the biggest quake today was the 6.8 quake, South Atlantic Ocean, South Georgia, and South Sandwich Islands, the 21st of August, so 17 hours ago. And I guess a more recent quake was a 2.3 in New Zealand. So interesting website to stay up to date on the birth pangs, the earthquakes, so we can move right on along. So I dropped these links already. This is the night sky over Jerusalem right now. So if you notice, everything right now is visible except for Mars.
So you just let me know which one you're
which is ironic. I don't have the link available. If you could find one. There's been some strikes on Damascus. So if you could maybe find that, drop it in the chat.
So look for article on strikes against Damascus on Damascus.
Yeah, and that's in regards to Isaiah 17, something that watch for the desolation of Damascus. So, you can take note here of the rise times of the various planets and what's visible, etc. You can even look at meteor showers that are coming up. So
just to apologize to everybody, I thought I muted myself, but my daughter keeps bugging me and I talk to her, so sorry to be. I know somebody's going to complain.
I didn't hear you
later, and I'm sorry about it. Sorry, but I said, what do you want? I'm doing a video. She's like, I'm. So she's going to her friend's house. Everybody, thanks for understanding. I know I had you and a different mic on with this one, so they've been hearing all the background noise, and I apologize.
A different mic. I understand.
I gotta be better at this because someone's going to complain later. You know, they usually do they don't in the chat because they all seem to understand. But somebody will come on later and they'll say, "You really should mute yourself when talking to your children." I'm like, I know, I really should. So apologize, everybody. Anyway, back to you. I'll look for this. I see Israel strikes near Damascus.
Yeah, that's probably the more recent thing there. If you could drop that.
Militants killed in Israeli attack in Syria. That's from. I'm trying to find a date.
It was.
August 19th.
Yeah, it was very recent.
So I'll drop that.
I just forgot to grab the link where I had it, but it's buried somewhere.
Oops.
There's always so much information. Anyway, I'll continue here with that until you find that. So this day in history, Jewish history, the passing of our Baruch Mordecai Ettinger Baruch. It's a tough word to say. And so this fellow was a follower of the last 3 Chabad rebbes, it says, and relates him here to Talmudic things. Let's talk more here about the laws and customs. This is what I was really wanting. The Elul observances. As the last month of the Jewish year, Elul is traditionally a time of introspection and stock taking. So the king is in the field taking stock of things, right? We're going to talk a little bit about that here on the next link. A time to review one's deeds and spiritual progress over the past year and prepare for the upcoming, quote, days of awe of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which this is like the month or the year's end, even though it's the new year, it's the new civil year. but it's more like the end of year celebration, whereas the spring is like the new year for the ecclesiastical calendar for fruit and stuff like that. So anyway, Yom Kippur, if you recall, is the day of judgment. And so basically think of it like the scales of Libra, being like that weighing. Like he said when the hand appeared and wrote on the wall, many, many tekel parson, you've been weighed, measured, and found wanting. It's like a judgment that occurs, which we see this in Revelation as well with the four horsemen, and the earth is being judged. As the month of divine mercy and forgiveness, it's also when the scapegoat ritual occurs here also, separation of the goat and the sheep. It is the most opportune time for teshuvah, repentance. I'll see if I can hover over that. See, I'll copy the link there. Teshuvah is repentance or returning to the way, or like the law. Return to God, it says here. Prayer, charity, and increased ahavat Yisrael, love for the fellow Jew, in the quest for self-improvement and coming closer to God. Hasidic master, I don't like referring to them as this. This guy here likens the month of Elul to a time when, quote, the king is in the field, and in contrast to when he is in the royal palace, quote, everyone who so desires is permitted to meet him and receives them all with a cheerful countenance and shows a smiling face to them all. Specific Elul customs include the daily sounding of the shofar, ram's horn, as a call to repentance. This is why they also do the trumpet blasts for Yom Teruah. That kind of kicks things off for Rosh Hashanah. It says here the Baal Shem Tov, which means Lord of the good name. Tov means good. Shem means name. Baal refers to Lord. Instituted the custom of reciting 3 additional characters of Psalms each day. That's the Tehillim, the praise, from the first of Elul until Yom Kippur. So, if we were following these traditions, we would be reciting 3 additional chapters of Psalms each day. And a lot of these Psalms are considered like at least 5 to 7 of them, I think, are considered like battle hymns, capable of, literally routing demonic influence, if you will. So, consider when you recite the Psalms, you're actually doing a very effective job. You may not even realize it. Okay, and then below are the Psalms for today, the Tehillim. So we can read a little bit of those. And Elul is also the time to have one's Tefillin. That's the strap that you wrap around the hand, or to bind the laws and the word to our hand and between our eyes, and then meditate on it. And the shin of the Holy Spirit helps us digest and understand and integrate that. And of course, we want our actions of our right hand to reflect the meditations of our left hand, being associated with the law. And so your fruitful works and are leading people back to the word and the vine. So that's why this stuff is characterized in an agricultural sense, because the more it's practiced, not just studied, but practiced, the more fruitful you become, because you're reflecting that spirit. Anyway, let's read some of the Tehillim. Chapter 40. Okay, so again, like their hymns, like I said. So the conductor here, a psalm by David, he led a lot of military campaigns. And so it's like in that type of an attitude. He's reflecting upon all the victories and things that have been granted to him. So keep that in mind here. Chapter 40, for the conductor, a psalm by David. I put my hope in the Lord. He turned me and heard my cry. He raised me from the turbulent pit, from the slimy mud, and set my feet upon a rock, steadying my steps. He put a new song in my mouth. We hear about that in Revelation and also in Isaiah 12. A hymn to our God. Multitudes will see and fear and will trust in the Lord. Fortunate is the man who has made the Lord his trust and did not turn to the haughty, nor to those who stray after falsehood. So this will be kind of applicable when we read about Abraham and Terah, and that's kind of like right here at the top there. We'll make a reference to that then, because they had idols. You have done much, O you, Lord my God. Your wonders and thoughts are for us. None can compare to you. Should I relate or speak of them, they are too numerous to recount. Your desired neither sacrifice nor meal offering, but, it says here, obedient ears you opened for me. You have an ear to hear, for instance. You requested neither burnt offering nor sin offering. Then I said, quote, behold, I come with a scroll of the book written for me. I desire to fulfill your will, my God, and your Torah is in my innards. Means he has been digesting it, perhaps. I proclaimed your righteousness in a vast congregation. Behold, I will not restrain my lips, O Lord, you know. I did not conceal your righteousness within my heart. I declared your faithfulness and deliverance. I did not hide your kindness and truth from the vast congregation. He's feeding the sheep, in other words. May you, Lord, not withhold your mercies from me. May your kindness and truth constantly guard me, for countless evils surround me. My sins have overtaken me, and I cannot see. They outnumber the hairs on my head, and my heart has abandoned me. May it please you, Lord, to save me. O Lord, hurry to my aid. Let those who seek my life to end it be shamed and humiliated together. Let those who desire my harm retreat and be disgraced. Let those who say about me, aha, aha, be desolate and return for their shaming me. Verse 17, let all those who seek you exult and rejoice in you. Let those who love your deliverance always say, quote, be exalted, O Lord. That's what Baruch Hashem basically means. As for me, I am poor and needy. My Lord will think of me. You are my help and my rescuer, my God. Do not delay. So, I know that we're always talking about doom and gloom, but right there, that's really hopeful stuff. So anytime you feel like you need lifted up, it's a good idea to come to the Psalms and do the Tehillim. We're supposed to be doing this every day. So, this is the kind of thing that would give us that daily bread, if you will, just like he's talking about right here.
It's funny that you say that because our friend Ninja, aka Ninja Scroll, aka Sean Walden, in the chat, who does the hip hop truth music.
Oh yeah, I need to watch that video. I noticed there was a new one, right?
Yes, we put a new one up, but just this morning he was sharing with me a video from Truth Unedited that talks about the reading the Psalms for worship and praise, and how it can also lift you up, like you just said, almost word for word. And I was feeling so bummed out today because I'm talking with a friend last night about all the craziness of the world and the friends that won't listen to us. And this morning I'm feeling kind of pity party, sorry for myself about all this stuff. Kind of realizing that it's because I guess some of this was, it's just a little bit of a valley, and it's just been frustrating for me. Like I said, with trying to get the trip to Cancun that I probably can't go on, that I earned. I've never won anything like that in my life, and now I don't get to
Everything's a
go.
test, Aaron.
So, but anyway, exactly the same stuff. What was that? We should be reading the Psalms, and Sean even sent me several. And so, yeah, I'm glad that you're saying it, because I hit my head last night so hard. I've never hit my head on the ceiling of my basement, which is very low, but I've lived here for over 2 years. I've never hit my head. And last night I was coming down the stairs and I hit my head so hard I just sat down and cried for like 5 minutes. And my girls came and like comforted me, asked me if I was okay, and it was really sweet. And I'm like, I think the Lord's trying to tell me something. And now today, this is the third time I've been told we should be
Knock
reading
some
the Psalms
sense
every
into you.
day. So I'm going to take that as a real clear sign. So anyway, back to you.
I've hit my head before, man. It's no laughing matter. It hurts to laugh even when you've done it
Yeah,
hard enough.
all I could do is, tears were just streaming out of my, it's not like I was sobbing. It's just tears were just streaming out of my eyes because it hurts so stinking bad. It still hurts today, but not just sitting here. But it was a good one. I'm glad I didn't knock myself out.
Baruch Hashem.
Hallelujah.
I remember the time I hit my head. It was so intense. I stood there for a moment, said my ABCs forward and backward just to make sure I was good, because I didn't know what else to do, like a mental status exam.
And I was asked to turn my volume up, and I did. As again, apologies on the mic situation. I had a different mic going at first, so everybody heard me messing with my kids, trying to talk to one of them, trying to leave to go to the neighbors. And then now since I changed mics, I didn't have the sound turned up, so my apologies, but I hope it's better now. So back to you.
It's weird this fella here mentioned the Ghostbusters, because I was really considering adding that to tonight's show, but I just didn't feel like I had the time. So another weird synchronicity there. But I was planning to cover it next week, so I'll at least mention why later on. But anyway, let's get back to Helen here. Okay, so again, it's referring to him as the conductor. Remember, he played the harp, and I'm pretty sure in that Cohen song, Hallelujah, that they're making a reference here to the note that pleased the Lord that David played. And remember that each night the Spirit would come into his room and blow upon his harp, and I think it made this particular note that woke him up, and then he would spend time with the Lord. And a lot of these Torah scholars, they'll get up really, really early in the morning, particularly in those times, to study. And I think it might be because it's quiet, but also I think it's somewhat in the tradition of what David did. So, for what it's worth, try to, imagine one thing, how he's living his life. He's kind of like writing these entries as he's experiencing them sometimes. There's other times when he's facing all these adversaries, and yet he's not even allowed to know how many troops he has. And in fact, the one time he does count them, he gets punished, and 70,000 of them die. So like he's being forced to have faith, true faith, and lead a nation. And it's just, there's a lot of gravity here. So let's try to imagine he is indeed the conductor, right? And the symphony are the tribes, I guess. So let's continue here. For the conductor, a psalm by David. Fortunate is he who is thoughtful of the poor, for the Lord will save him on the day of evil. The Lord will guard him and keep him alive. He will be praised throughout the land. You will not deliver him to the desires of his enemies. Verse 4, the Lord will support him on the bed of illness. You will turn him over in his bed all throughout his sickness. I said, quote, Lord, be gracious to me, heal my soul, for I have sinned against you. My foes say that evil awaits me. Quote, when will he die and his name perish? See a lot of focus here on whether or not your name lives. That's what Baruch Hashem, bless the name. If you don't support the name, the names that get included in these stories even, that get to live forever. That's why we really shouldn't say the Hasatan, the names that aren't included, because we add to their fame, which is also the meaning of Shem's fame and name both. And David did a lot to support Hashem, the name. And if one comes to see me, he speaks insincerely, for his heart gathers iniquity for himself, and when he goes out, he speaks of it. Verse 8, together they whisper against me, all mine enemies, against me they devise my harm, saying, quote, let his wickedness pour into him. Now that he lies down, he shall rise no more. Even mine ally, who I trust, who ate of my bread, has raised his heel over me. But you, Lord, be gracious to me and raise me up, and I will repay them. With this I shall know that you desire me, when my enemies will not shout gleefully over me. And I, because of my integrity, you have held me, you set me before you forever. Blessed is the Lord, Baruch Hashem, the God of Israel, to all eternity. Amen and amen. And we got the one last psalm. It's the chapter 42. And that one is right here. And some of his adversaries were even giants. Remember, he only slayed Goliath, and he had 5 stones in his hand. So that meant there was at least 4 more giants leading, nations. And he was fighting all these folks. So you got to remember, a lot of these hymns are inspired by the feats that Yahweh led them through. Okay, again, for the conductor, a maskil by the sons of Korach. I think he was related to, cousin of Moses and Aaron. He led a revolt against Moses and Aaron, claiming that the priesthood should not belong exclusively to Aaron and his descendants. He and his followers were swallowed up by the ground. They were appointed by Yahweh, so he went against Hashem. So the earth swallowed them up. So they were not remembered, right? Except when we talk about them here, I guess. So as the deer cries longingly for brooks of water, so my soul cries longingly for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When will I come and behold the countenance of God? That's the face. My tears have been my bread day and night, when they say to me all day, quote, where is your God? These do I recall and pour out my soul from within me, how I traveled to Jerusalem in covered wagons. I would walk leisurely with them up to the house of God, amid the sound of rejoicing and thanksgiving, the celebrating multitude. That's the reason we're reading this now, is it's describing the time as they approach Jerusalem, making their way there for there's certain feasts that men had to come to, and one of them was the Day of Judgment. There's also the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and then Shavuot. So this would have been the next one after Shavuot, which was basically in the May, June 1st era. Verse 6, why are you downcast, my soul, and why do you wail within me? Hope to God, for I will yet thank him for the deliverances of his countenance. My God, my soul is downcast upon me, because I remember you from the land of Jordan and Hermon's peaks, from Mount Mitzar. Mount Hermon's where the fallen appeared, right? It's at the 33rd degree parallel. Deep calls to deep at the roar of your channels. All your breakers and waves have swept over me. Verse 9, by day the Lord ordains his kindness, and by night his song is with me. Again, at night the Spirit would come and visit him, so maybe that's when he played his harp. A prayer to God of my life. Verse 10, I say to God, my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why must I walk in gloom under the oppression of the enemy? Like a sword in my bones, my adversaries disgrace me when they say to me all day, where is your God? And verse 12, why are you downcast, my soul? And why do you wail within me? Hope to God, for I will yet thank him. He is my deliverance, the light of my countenance, and my God. So he's basically talking to himself here and having a conversation about scoffers. People saying, yeah, where's the proof of your God, But him simply being victorious as he was all the proof he needed, because, he was living proof, in other words. And he was the king. So it's fitting that we'd be talking about David. And so I forgot to share that. Did I forget to share that last link? I think I did.
You may have. The last link I had was chapter 4.
I'll do. Yeah, sorry about that. Okie dokie. Oh yeah, and the Teflon, in case you're not familiar with the strap that goes around the hand and the cube that sits upon the head. This will help you learn about that. Okay, so let's read about the king in the field, because the month of Elul is kind of about the end of summer. And remember, Jeremiah talks about, as summer is over and have we been saved, So does the king go looking through his vineyard in reference to like the parable of the vineyard. He's going through and inspecting the trees, and then he says, well, this one's not been bearing fruit. Well, he didn't know that, the gardener was hiding the first fruits so that the third year would be more abundantly fruitful, right? But so he says, cut it down. Well, that's just to say that after 3 years of unfruitfulness, that's like the prescribed remedy, because it says it's a burden on the earth to keep it around because it's not being fruitful. And so remember again that we're in that halfway period since the great sign in heaven, 2017. So harvest emphasis there. So Elul, the last month of the Jewish year, is the time of paradox, a time of what might be termed spiritual work days, as we approach Yom Kippur, Day of Judgment. The Jewish calendar distinguishes between two general qualities of time, mundane and holy. That's Kol Kadesh. Ordinary work days are mundane portions of time, Shabbat, which was yesterday, and the festivals are examples of holy time. And on holy days, not holidays, but holy days, we disengage ourselves from the material involvements of life to devote ourselves to the spiritual pursuits of study and prayer. These are also days enriched with special spiritual resources, such as rest on Shabbat, which I try very hard to do that, freedom on Passover. And that's another thing folks don't realize about Yahweh, as he bonds folks out of slavery. This is one of his expressed virtues. Awe on Rosh Hashanah, because of mercy, and each providing its unique quality to the journeyer through calendar and life. And it is like that. I mean, just in the year that I've started kind of getting serious about the feast days, I've learned a lot. And so, just by devoting my time for Shabbat, it produces fruit. And all I'm doing is just sharing fruit with you all, so to speak. So that's how it can be. But everybody that does it is going to get a totally different variety of fruit that the Spirit cultivates within them. So that's why the body of Christ as a whole is so much more, that's awe. That's when everybody's coming together, at the end of the season, they're all coming together. The body of Christ convenes and tabernacle. That's the time of tabernacles too. So it's pretty remarkable to me. I don't know. Let's continue here. In the latter respect, the month of Elul resembles the holy portions of the calendar. Elul is a haven in time, a city of refuge. What a scene, Aaron. What a scene.
I like that.
Can't say why, but if you know, you know.
Yep, can't
Wow.
say why right now.
That's what I call an affirmation. From the ravages of material life, a time to audit one's spiritual accounts and assess the year gone by, a time to prepare for the days of awe of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur by repenting the failings of the past and resolving for the future, a time to increase in Torah study and prayer and charitable activities. Elul is the opportune time for all of this because it is a month in which God relates to us in a more open and compassionate manner than he does in other months of the year. And the terminology of Kabbalah is a time when God's, quote, 13 attributes of mercy illuminate his relationship with us. I've heard this referred to as if you were to boil it all down to, the basic components, these would be the 13 things that cannot be removed. In other words, like the tenets of the faith. So I guess that's what you can kind of think of with this. Yet, unlike Shabbat and the festivals, the days of Elul are work days. On Shabbat, the Torah commands us to cease all physical construction work. It calls that Malakah. The festivals, too, are on days which Malakah is forbidden. Regarding the month of Elul, however, there are no such restrictions. So it's to maybe encourage a more festive type of atmosphere, kind of like Purim. And the transcendent activities of Elul are concluded amidst our workday lives in the field, shop, or office. So, basically the harvest season's over. We would have had the breaking of the axe for the firewood. The harvest is getting brought in. You kind of think of this as like the time people maybe this is like the vacation season for some people, This is also when serious Torah scholars might even take a short break, even if it's just because they're traveling back to Israel, for this purpose here. Anyway, I digress. I'm just trying to say that this is to be a part of a flow of it's a part of a routine for a lot of folks. Here's the paradox of Elul. With the following metaphor, this is explained. The king's usual place is in the capital city, in the royal palace. Anyone wishing to approach the king must go through the appropriate channels in the palace bureaucracy and gain the approval of a succession of secretaries and ministers. He must journey to the capital and pass through many gates, corridors, and antechambers that lead to the throne room. His presentation must be meticulously prepared, and he must adhere to the exacting code of dress, speech, and mannerism upon entering into the royal presence. A reference here to whenever angels would appear and they would tell the person to remove their shoes, for instance. That's part of the dress code, even when it's just hallowed ground. However, there are times when the king comes out to the fields outside the city. At such times, anyone can approach him. The king receives them all with a smiling face and a radiant countenance. The peasant behind his plow has access to the king in a manner unavailable to the highest ranking minister in the royal court when the king is in his palace. The month of Elul, says teacher Zalman, is when the king is in the field. The field. Bread is the staff of life that sustains the heart of men. There was a time when which by the way, a staff is also a musical notation term, so the lines that produce the music notes that go across, that's a staff. So the song in your heart as your staff of life, right? The universe, if you will. It's a song to Yahweh. There was a time when most everyone plowed, sowed, and harvested the grain that sustained him and his family. You reap what you sow, right? But even today, when only a small percentage of us farm the land, we all labor for bread. That was part of our curse after taking the fruit off the tree. Everyone works in the field, be it the wheat field or the corn field, or the field of banking, steelmaking, medicine, or advertising. Here it says, indeed, the field is the prototype employed by Torah law to define work that distinguishes between the holy and mundane days on the calendar. The Talmudic passage, which lists the type of work forbidden on Shabbat, reads, the categories of work are 40 minus 1, sowing, plowing, reaping, making sheaves, threshing, winnowing, picking chaff from the grain, milling, sifting, kneading, baking. Anything that would help produce bread, essentially, is restricted. Each of these activities represents an entire category, which includes many types of work. For example, leveling the ground to make a tennis court. Oh, by the way, breadwinner might have been like where this kind of thing come from, that phrase. Who's the breadwinner? And so sorting laundry would fall under the category of picking the chaff from the grain, but the prototypes that head and dominate the list of forbidden labors are labors in the field. In the words of the Talmud, the author of the Mishnah follows the process of bread making. So yeah, really a lot of emphasis on that, which Bethlehem is house of bread. So, okay, so for 11 months of the year, our lives alternate between the field and the palace, between the, quote, process of bread making, of material life, and the sublime moments in which we leave the field to enter the royal presence. In the month of Elul, however, the king comes to the field. What happens when the king comes to the field? To understand the essence of Elul, we must first examine the relationship between the palace and the field, between Shabbat and the work week, between the very concepts of holy and mundane. Are they really as distant from each other as their very different faces suggest? Is this appealing to you? I can continue reading.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's good.
The sanctuary. Let us take a closer look at the, quote, work of the field and, quote, process of bread making that defines our workday lives. The Torah chooses a rather roundabout way to convey to us the 39 types of work from which they must desist on Shabbat and the festivals by linking the laws of Shabbat to the laws of the sanctuary. Following the revelation at Sinai, that's when they were given the Torah, God commanded the people of Israel to construct a, quote, sanctuary for him. Detailed instructions were given to Moses on how to shape 15 materials: gold, silver, copper, wood, flax, wool of various colors, and several types of animal skins into a, quote, dwelling for God in the physical world. Man, that is so cool. Okay, in both the 31st and 35th chapters of Exodus, the commandment to cease work on the Shabbat and God's instructions concerning the construction of the sanctuary immediately followed each other. The Talmud explains that the Torah juxtaposes these seemingly these two seemingly unrelated laws in order to teach us that the 39 creative acts which the construction of the sanctuary necessitated are the same 39 categories of work that are forbidden to us on Shabbat. Well, that makes a lot of sense because of the way it relates rest. And here it says a person is guilty of violating Shabbat only if the work he does has a counterpart in the work of making the sanctuary. They sowed the herbs from which you make dyes and tapestries. You too shall not sow. They harvested the herbs. You too shall not harvest. They loaded the boards from the ground onto the wagons. You too shall not bring an object from public domain into a private domain. So this is a lot of the reason why they just don't even, a lot of folks that keep the Sabbath strictly don't even bother. They don't even leave the house because it's really just so difficult to do anything without breaking it. So you're really intended to stay in your house for the most part and rest from your labor. But remember, these kind of restrictions are kind of lifted during this times to encourage folks to go and participate, I guess. So maybe they're allowed to be traveling to Jerusalem during this time. Maybe that's the reason for it. For the work of the sanctuary is the prototype for the work of life. In the words of the Tanya, quote, "This is what man is all about. There is a purpose of his creation and the creation of all worlds, supernal and ephemeral, to make God a dwelling in the physical world." In other words, the work forbidden on Shabbat and the festivals, the work that defines the difference between the holy and mundane days of our lives, is not mundane work at all. It is holy work, the work of forming the physical world into a home for God. Why then are the days on which this work is done regarded as, quote, mundane days of our lives? The mundane days of our lives. It's like a soap opera title, right?
Yeah.
And why are the days on which we are commanded to cease this work holier than the days on which the work is done? More of this is there. It's a significant portion. Okay, so this tower thing is kind of important, I guess. So, indeed, the difference between a holy and mundane times of our lives is not a difference in essence, but a difference in perspective. Yet the reality of physical life is that to achieve a change of perspective, one must change the place and position from which one looks. Beyond its mundane surface, the material world possesses a deeper truth, its potential to house the goodness and perfection of its creator. The purpose of our workday lives is to reveal this potential, to develop the material world as a home for God. But on the work days of our life, this potential is all but invisible to us, obscured by the very process that serves to bring it to light. Our very involvement with the material prevents us from experiencing its spiritual essence, and to do so, we must rise above it. A, quote, holy day is an elevation in the terrain of time, a lookout tower. That's what Natsarim refers to be watchful, right? So a lookout tower that rises above the surface of our workday lives to behold the true essence of our world, the essence we are laboring to actualize. In other words of our sages, Shabbat is a taste of the world to come. Baruch Hashem. Rising to these, quote, lookout points means interrupting our life's work, but without these periodic glimpses from a higher, more detached vantage point, our involvement in the material may well become an enmeshment. Instead of sanctifying the mundane, we may find ourselves being profaned by it. So, in other words, try to break your worldly habits on this day by separating yourself from it and doing your best to manage without it. Would be the essential goal here, and spend that time instead with God on purpose, and studying His Torah, learning what Christ taught, etc. So one day a week and on special occasions throughout the year, we cease our work in the field to gain a more transcendent view of our workday labors. Then we re-enter the so-called mundane days of our lives. The Shabbat, or festival experience, lingers on, enriched with insight in the true nature of our labors, fortified by a vision of what our involvement with the material will ultimately achieve. Our workday lives because more focused on their goal and less susceptible to the diversions and entanglements of the mundane. And man, it's long. I think I got my point across. If you want to finish this, I just don't want to run out of time. We're already short on time. I think.
I shared the link myself.
Okay.
And I think
All right.
Doc did too.
Well, thank you for sticking it out. If you didn't enjoy it,
I did. I very much did.
Okay. I just wanted everybody to understand the season we're moving into. And in fact, Yom Kippur is one of those days you're not supposed to work at all. So, I just wanted to point that out. And from the 20th to the 27th is the Feast of Tabernacles. So that's the time we should be, heading out of the cities, making the tabernacles in the wilderness to dwell with, Holy Spirit. And so that's when you get the blessing of that. So anyway, the next full moon is a blue moon, the sturgeon or green corn moon, Raksha Bandham Nikani Poya, and the end of Isela Pahara festival and the hungry ghost moon. That was a tongue twister, Aaron. So
I'm kidding.
man. Okay, so that's the next. This is the full moon we're in right now. Outside last night, you might have saw the full moon. So, which was this morning. So, I didn't want to necessarily read about the specifics here. I'm gonna just. Oh, I think this is a blue moon also, which means it's the second full moon in a month. Here we go. This is the part I wanted to read. The Maine's Farmer's Almanac first published Native American names for the full moons in the 1930s, and over time these names have been become widely known and used. According to the almanac, as the full moon in August, the you know that word, Algonquin.
Algonquin? Yep.
Yes, I think you corrected me on it once before. And what is now the northeastern United States called the sturgeon moon. That's a type of fish, I think. And after the large fish that were more easily caught this time of year in the Great Lakes and other major bodies of water, this moon was also called the green corn moon. My mother made a comment recently that August was when the corn stood tall. And she said that's when all the festivals are and everything. I just thought it was kind of interesting because it went right along with a lot of the things I study. And did you see the ball game they played? Like they had, it was in the middle of a cornfield, like a baseball game. They tried to recreate the Field of Dreams or something.
Oh, did they?
I just thought that was kind of weird.
Right.
Because
if you build it, he will come.
Yeah. So anyway,
that's one of those Mandela effect things.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say it, but since you said it, Ghostbusters, the lore of Ghostbusters involves, I guess, some really powerful families were using what was called Mandela energy to basically open portals and manifest spirits and all sorts of wild things. And I just was kind of surprised that Ghostbusters had such a rich story. It was, anyway, I'll talk about that more next week.
It'd be a good idea to watch that again. I thought about it because they have that whole Zulu Keymaster.
I'll do. The Keymaster and the Gatekeeper, and who they're actually summoning is a Sumerian dude, and that's the shepherd we've been talking about. I'm pretty sure. So they've been telegraphing this stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
Pretty bizarre. But anyway, we'll cover that next week. Hold on a second. Let me get this link off here. Okay, so we hold on. I don't know what's going on. There it goes. All right, so if you remember, we covered the eclipse thing that went across the United States and how it passed through 7 Salems. And I had forgotten to mention this. Oh, why stop doing that? Why did it go back? There we go. Okay, so here's from NASA. Hold on here. The chat's chat was lagging. If I already posted this, I'm sorry, but here it is.
Yeah, I was
So
going to ask you to post it again anyway.
So it followed the same pattern here. I remember them doing this where I went. I was in Tennessee right here, where I went and saw the eclipse. And my friend was all about this NASA thing they were doing, and she's telling me about it. So I knew it was happening, but I didn't really understand what they were doing. And they were studying the effects of ultraviolet radiation, which apparently is more intense during an eclipse. They were trying to study the effects of that on these particular types of bacteria, which I guess are collected from Florida around where they do the launches into, quote, space. And so there are, I guess, bacteria are still able to live where the launch pads are. So they classify them as an extremophile. And so they were experimenting to see what the effect of ultraviolet light would be on this extremophile. But regardless, they were releasing this into the United States over top of, following the path of the eclipse, path of totality. So that's just a little minor detail that I forgot to mention that happened at the exact same time. And by the way, when's the Cancun trip? Because in April 2024, the second part of the X will be passing through Cancun.
It's September 23rd of this year.
Oh, okay. Well, it's okay. It's still halfway through. It's kind of interesting. So yeah, the second one will be passing through Cancun, up through here in Canada. And that's April 8th, 2024, I think. But anyway, you can read more about it if you want. But remember, it entered the 33rd state to enter the Union at Salem, Oregon. 7 Salems in between. Exits the 33rd parallel at another Salem, of course. And so, yeah, I just had to share that real quick. And let me get this one out of the way. And then here's this. We're facing a lot of persecution here lately on the online world. And, here's some more reasons they can now ban you. And I saw this on Enter the Stars. So now you can be banned for suggesting prayer as a way to cure anything. So if you promote this content that encourages the use of home remedies, prayer, or rituals in place of medical treatment, such as consulting a doctor or going to the hospital, et cetera, et cetera. So folks, there's something out there. It's an epidemic right now. It's called stupidity. You need to go see your doctor about it. But I will pray for you.
Healing from that, right?
But I will pray for you. So yeah, I just can't believe the world we're living in, man. It's getting crazy. Which reminds me of how wonky things can be. This is actually from 2014 when it was made famous, but because it's now kind of relevant, I wanted to cover this briefly. The epidemic of affluenza. In other words, you're so rich and detached from the common struggle of humanity that you're not responsible for the consequences of your behavior. So
I do remember this. There was a bunch of stuff going on with young kids regarding this.
Yeah, like the Illuminati kids, basically,
right.
That are Illuminati children. So yeah, I don't really need to read too much of this, but I will try to. Here we go. Maybe right here. Higher rates of mental disorders were the consequence of excessive wealth seeking in consumerist nations. In a graph created from multiple data sources, the prevalence of any emotional distress and income inequality attempted to show that English-speaking nations had nearly twice as much emotional distress as mainland Europe and Japan. James defined affluenza as, quote, placing a high value on money, possessions, appearances, physical and social, and fame, which was a rationale behind the increasing mental illness in English-speaking societies. So selfish capitalism, etc., branding themselves, their image, if you will. Yeah, pretty interesting. So we've been up against this too, it's just funny. So anyway, not funny, but I just had to share this because
If
this is
you
something
don't laugh, you cry. So
it
it's
should
funny
be
in that way.
more well known. But the all-consuming epidemic. I mean, this is going back all the way to these times, but these are the people that run the country too. So I mean, that's the point here that is really not being made, is that people say that we have countries run by psychopaths. Well, yeah, they're infected with affluenza, but remember regardless of what the first part of the word might refer to, it's still using that enza part, and we know what enza means, Aaron. That's giant. Specifically female giant. So they're under the influence of the female giant, right? So I don't know, man. It's just at some point these things start to layer, and you shall know them by their fruits, right? So how you test positive for affluenza? I don't know.
Affluent jerk.
It's an interesting test. So if you, yeah, here's some ways to spot it. If you see somebody with feelings of guilt, lack of motivation, and social isolation experienced by wealthy people, extreme materialism and consumerism associated with pursuit of wealth and success, and resulting in a life of chronic dissatisfaction, debt, overwork, stress, and impaired relationships. I mean, only in America, folks. You talk about first world problems.
Yep.
Yeah. This came from some well, bat soup, but I don't know. Bat was made of gold, pure gold. I don't know. Anyway, let's continue. They couldn't come up with a better one on the fly.
On the fly. Get it?
Yeah.
Fly.
Pence. Okay, so I've been reflecting on that kayak trip, and something else came to light. Remember the story of the kingfisher that I encountered on the stream as I was kayaking?
Right.
He was casting a net off of his vessel and catching many unsuspecting carp, and he said that he caught 500, which we know he's exaggerating, but 500 in Strong's represents Antichristos. And so, and he made the comment of how he threw back the largest carp because they were too strong to deal with. They weren't worth getting hurt over. He just kept the small ones and cut them up. I guess he was using them as bait. And then, but couldn't mess with the big ones. Well, I got to thinking about it, and I thought, well, you know what? I think I know what carp means, but I'm going to go ahead and look up the definition of carp. And what do you know? That you go down here, and one of the last definition for carp is a reference to part of a fruit or fruit. Now, have we not been talking about fruit?
Right, I wouldn't have guessed that.
I mean, good Lord. So I thought it was kind of hilarious. So anyway, I'm going to read a little bit about how that relates. And so imagine, what this implies, the fruitfulness of the large carp, the large fruit. Okay, so fruit anatomy is the plant anatomy, internal structure of fruit. So this is referring to how fruit is like separated and forms. So let me get down here to the part. There it is. So the pericarp layers in fleshy fruits, the pericarp is typically made up of 3 distinct layers: the epicarp, also known as the exocarp, which is the outermost layer; the mesocarp, which is the middle layer; and the endocarp, which is the inner layer surrounding the ovary or the seed. In a citrus fruit, the endocarp and mesocarp make up the peel. In dry fruits, the layers of pericarp are not clearly distinguishable. Epicarp is a botanical term for the outermost layer of pericarp or fruit. The epicarp forms the tough outer skin of the fruit, if there is one. The epicarp is sometimes called the exocarp, or especially in citrus, the flavedo. So perhaps the largest carp have a strong epicarp, a strong exterior rind, like a coconut of sorts, if you will. I don't know. It's just it's really wild. Think of how this applies in the spirit. And okay, so let's continue down here to this. Oh, it does say what a flavado is. A flavado is mostly composed of cellulosic material, but it also contains many other components such as essential oils, paraffin waxes, steroids, triterpenoids, fatty acids, pigments, a lot of other things, bitter principles. Anyway, let's continue down here. The mesocarp, or the middle carp, is a fleshy middle layer of the pericarp of the fruit and is found between the epicarp and the endocarp. It is usually the part of the fruit that is eaten. For example, the mesocarp makes up most of the edible part of a peach and considerable part of a tomato. Mesocarp may also refer to any fruit that is fleshy throughout. In a hesperidium, as is found in citrus fruit, I don't know what that means. The mesocarp is referred to as albedo or pith, the white stuff you see. It is the inner part of the peel and commonly removed before eating, although I recommend eating it because it's it contains different things than what you are eating, and it's high in fiber, of course. And in citron, where the mesocarp is most prominent part, it is used to produce saccade. Candied peel of citrus species. What? You can turn orange peels into candy? Well, I'm going to have to look into this, guys. Well, here, you can make your own. Hold on. Sorry, I got excited. I ate a lot of fruit.
Doesn't surprise me. You're already kind of sugary.
Well, I mean, I don't like to waste things, but I also don't want to just sit and eat the rind of it either. Okay. Continuing here. Also, it notes stone fruits, which there is this mention of the stone and the branch, which I never really thought about it being the stone. You know what I mean? It's the pit or seed of a fruit, the branch and the stone, but it's also the foundation stone. I don't know. It's sometimes it's too much, Aaron. It gets me to start stuttering.
Makes your brain kind of start to explode a little bit.
But anyway, when you see in the Bible, he talks about the stone. We'll have to look at the interlinear to see what's going on there, like what the word is actually pointing to. Is it meaning a stone, like a rock, or are we referring to stone in this case? I wouldn't be surprised if it was this. And let's see if there's any more to cover. Okay, I think that got that out of the way. So I hope you were blessed by that fruitfulness. So again, that was my experience on the creek among the school of fish. It was quite a learning experience. And Revelation 13, we were going to take a look at, there it is, the mark of the beast. So we shall know them by their fruits, right? So we got to look at the fruit on this tree here, charagma. So we're talking about binding the laws to the left hand. That's what the tefillin. So they would do this, and then they'd say Psalms over and over and over, meditate on the law. Well, we know that the person that brings the mark of the beast is the lawless one, right? So he doesn't go with the law, goes with his own way instead. And then he has a mark associated with allegiance to him. So what does that mean? So we got the word charagma here. And so, welcome, Andrew Gnomes, Trucking Express. Is it hard to see over the dash? Okay. Charagma, right here. And so, actually, I selected the wrong thing. Let me go to the 5480 thing. Yes. Yep. The tomato is considered a fruit, I think, also. And it's on a vine. Okay, so charagma. So a stamp, impress, sculpture, engraving, a stamp, a sign, undeniable identification. You kind of mentioned that before the show, Aaron. And then like a symbol given irrefutable connection between parties. It's part of basically a covenant or an agreement. We're going to go into that in a second. Zaragma, brand or mark, was originally any impress on a coin or seal used by an engraver on a die, stamp, branding iron. Latter became the identification marker, like with a unique owner's unique brand mark. So have you ever heard of the term maker's mark or hallmark? That is, well, let's bring that up. Mark meaning. And so this is also to denote purity of the substance. So when it's talking about trying the gold and things like that, it's talking about making it to the end, etc. What's like a refining process, if you will. Those with the most faith, those with the most fruit, the kingfisher isn't going to be able to handle them, you know. That's kind of how I interpreted it. But we can't do it without the Spirit, though. We need to have Yahweh. And so here it is. Yeah, here it is, hallmark. Okay, so an official mark stamped on gold and silver articles in England to attest to their purity. A mark or a device placed or stamped on an article of trade, again, relates to trade, to indicate origin, purity, or genuineness. A distinguishing characteristic, trait, or feature. So, again, you know, pretty self-explanatory there. But maker's mark, who made you? Do you have your maker's mark, or do you have the mark of the beast? So it's kind of that simple, but we're going to delve into it in terms of what the word really means and its place in history. So I won't word for word here, but there's some important stuff to get shown. So right here captures it pretty well. The painting shows that a Roman slave market, remember, it's back to slavery, spiritual captivity is that, with people wearing clay tablets to identify them and their owner of their labor. just like the Lord. If you work for the Lord, He owns you as you are doing His labor. So that's why it's, again, important to take that day off. And why a lot of people take it so seriously and say that, Saturday and Sunday, mark of the beast thing. Well, that's part of it because it traces its origins back to this kind of thing. But again, that's a fruit, part of the costume. It's like if you did all the other things and do that, well, collectively, it's the whole kit caboodle. So there's other things to it, though. So we'll continue reading here. Identifying slaves and a citizen's eligibility for benefits and even a liability for taxes in Rome was often done with a clay plaque made with a charag to produce a charagma. The Greek word charagma is translated to mark, as in the mark of the beast in the book of Revelation. The word means specifically a badge of servitude. Beasts in prophecy are generally identified as governments of the world. So what is your government issued badge of servitude required by law in almost every country of the world to get to work, bank accounts, benefits, and even a passport for identification? So we see that it could technically be here already, but you don't have to have those things to do business. But that's the direction it's moving into now. It's much more clear to see. So they're even using the biometric stuff on folks down in Afghanistan now, because all that was left behind too. So now they're going to be using that on their own. The people that are working with us, they're going to be using that technology on those people. And it's just going to be an absolute, I didn't even, I forgot that all that even happened.
Speaking of, they are creating a database for anyone. Did I say that already earlier? They are creating a database for people who are getting the jab. And there was another one that, like, Illinois, I don't know where I put it. I thought I dropped that in our news one, but that Illinois was already creating an online, I'll have to look for it. But anyway, they are keeping a database of who and who is not getting these jabs.
And that's exactly what this is. I mean, people want to argue with you all day long about this kind of thing, but I mean, if you just read about this, it's...
Yeah, I found it.
It's pretty self-explanatory. There's
a Vax Verify website that Illinois is offering digital vaccination proof. So yeah, it won't be long. I mean, it was fun to think that you could maybe have your fake pass or whatever, and that might work. But we knew.
You know what,
it wasn't
Aaron?
gonna work for long.
I regret even entertaining that, because what does it say? If you're lukewarm, he'll spit you out. So I don't even want to be confused with somebody like that. You see what I mean? That's still the appearance of going along to get along. Well, Babylon, if you're in Babylon when it's burning, you're in Babylon when it's burning, period. So there's a point where you have to just leave, so we can't mix, because then we're lukewarm. So I'm sorry I had a reaction to that like I did, but I've actually thought a lot about it. It's because, but I'm like, no.
The point is it's not worth it.
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't want an angel to mistake me for one of them. Anyway.
Well, but also, let's say somebody didn't make that decision the way you did. We'll let them know it's also not worth it, because they're creating a database anyway. And I don't want my name in that database.
Yeah, word. I mean, exactly. I just decided, I was like, you know what? It's just, anyway.
Yeah, that's just...
Glad we're on the same page, but...
not bother.
The same hallmark, if you will. So, let's continue here. So I didn't want to read all of them. I'm trying to excise the parts that are most salient. It does remark here about Jupiter Hospitalis, which is the Zeus character, being on there at one point. And there's supposed to be some type of worship thing involved. And they took different forms, like coins or little tiles. So, it's like your health passport, or whatever you want to call it. This is the direction we're kind of moving in, it seems. And Charax in particular, I was actually looking for where it talks about, yeah, here it is, the gravenness of it, that it's imprinted with a sharp point. This is not saying it here. I think maybe, no. I had another link that it more clearly defined it as like a sharp point, something you scratch or make an impression with, but you use a sharp point. And so, of course, that is exactly what we're dealing with here. And it's whether or not you got that you get your proof and then your entitlements. So I'd say what we're looking, if you extrapolate this a little bit, those who are losing their jobs or could use benefits that didn't ever need them before, there could be moving into the territory of, well, you get that ID, to which my Bob juice, and you can do these things and we'll take care of you. And so the government will take care of you instead trusting God, right? So just remember, this is all part of the story. And anyway, I don't want to go on too long about that because I got another topic here to cover that's closely related. So the mark of this beast is also this man of sin. And again, because of the Sumerian thing that we were just talking about with Ghostbusters, this is kind of interesting now that we get to kind of loop back into that, because this man of lawlessness, again, remember, he doesn't want to keep the laws of Yahweh. And the papal authorities of the Catholic Church changed them with their mark of authority. They made a papal bull to change the decree of Yahweh to making the day Sunday. It's incidental we're doing this on Sunday. We normally don't. But so anyway, that's just to also show that those folks are trying to make up their own laws. So that'll be another thing we probably see with this character that arises, the Assyrian type. Yeah, weren't they already talking about like giving the earth a day of rest or something and then making it Sunday? I've seen stories. Well, the Catholic Church.
Oh.
Oh.
The Pope.
Well, they're the ones that changed it to Sunday.
Yeah, but I mean, like, they're branding it now as like a day of rest for the earth, and it's like part of the green agenda thing. I don't know, thought I showed it before in the past. But anyway, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. So anyway, review this if you like for the Man of Sin, but we're going somewhere with this. Hold on. How much time do we have? Because I want to.
We are live now for 1 hour and 30 minutes.
Okay. You said you wanted to do like 2 hours, so I'm going to try and go through these next ones a little fast.
Remember, that was when I was going to go to the fair with the girls, but we did that yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So,
well,
no fair today.
I'll still try not to be too fast.
No, don't stress about it.
Okay, so this is, again, the Sin character is relating back to the Mesopotamian god. So, again, in Ghostbusters, they were trying to summon that character. And, I mean, you know what? You may as well look it up and show it if you want. But look for the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper one. But I can't find any. I don't know if Gozer ever shows up, but that's the entity they're trying to summon.
It's a dragon of some kind, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
It's a dragon.
Well, he shows up, and
yeah,
I guess he has to, like, they have to tell him what form he is to choose to destroy their world, and I guess everybody was able to keep their minds clear. Except one guy was like, he couldn't help but think of marshmallows for some reason.
Yeah.
Or he purposefully thought of it, I guess.
No, it was on accident.
So I guess that's where the Marshmallow Man comes from. I always wondered like how that got in the mix, but so I don't know. That's just kind of a weird comedic relief, I guess. But anyway, let's read about the man of sin and how that could relate to this, because again, we're getting into this very ancient stuff here. So Sin, Akkadian, Sumerian, Nana, in Mesopotamian religion, that considered the god of the moon. Sin was the father of the sun god Shamash, which incidentally is the word for servant, like the servant candle, which is the one that's used to light the others. And in some myths of Ishtar, Inanna, goddess of Venus, and they together form the astral triad of deities. Nana was the Sumerian name for the moon god. May have originally meant only the full moon, whereas Su'in, later contracted to Sin, designated the crescent moon. So this is why you see the goddess with her crescent on her head a lot of times. At any rate, Nana was intimately connected with the cattle herds that were the livelihood of the people in the marshes of the lower Euphrates River, where the cult developed. The city of Ur, again, that's where Abraham comes from, of the same region, was the chief center of worship of Nana. The crescent, Nana's emblem, was sometimes represented by the horns of a great bull. Nana bestowed fertility and prosperity on the cow herds, governing the rise of the waters, the growth of reeds, the increase of her herd, and therefore the quantity of dairy products produced. His consort Ningal was a reed goddess. Each spring, Nana's worshippers reenacted his mythological visit to his father Enlil at Nippur, that's the cloud city, with a ritual journey, carrying with them the first dairy products of the year, the first fruits, if you will. Some feast days, you're even encouraged to eat dairy in particular, so that, again, could be a reason why. Gradually, Nana became more human, and from being depicted as a boat, because of his crescent emblem, he came to be represented as a cow herd or boatman. Sin was represented as an old man with a flowing beard, a wise and unfathomable type of deity wearing a headdress of 4 horns surmounted by a crescent moon. The last king of Babylon, Nabonidus, attempted to elevate Sin to a supreme position within the pantheon. So kind of interesting that the man of sin might be a re-emergence of this, which connects back to your Ishtar type stuff, because it's part of that triad there. So you got to remember, when they wrote this stuff, to them this was probably more common knowledge. So when we read it today, we don't really know what they're talking about. Well, maybe they're talking about that. Oh yeah, and so the sin thing relates it back to cattle. So remember, where we get the term bull's eye is that the red eye of the Taurus constellation is Aldebaran, and so that's bull's eye. And the definition of sin is to miss the mark. And so so as far as the Torah and the law is concerned, you see what I mean? This is a strange pattern that begins to emerge here, and how they were trying to basically copy the Most High, it looks like. And so again, with the Catholic Church making their own papal bulls, again, that's Taurus is also associated with the throat. So Genesis narrative in the light of recent scholarship of Abraham. The saga of Abraham unfolds between 2 landmarks: the exodus from Ur of the Chaldeans, we're just talking about them, of the family or clan of Terah, and the purchase of the burials. So wasn't going to read all of this, but it does mention again down here about, it is certain that the cradle of the ancestors was the seat of a vigorous polytheism, whose memory had not been lost, and whose uncontested master in Ur was Nana, or Sin, the Sumerian Akkadian moon god. They served other gods, it says in Joshua who was Moses' successor, recalled speaking of their descendants in Shechem. Further down here, it talks about an instance during which the idols are taken and cut up. And just if you bear with me here, I will find it. So maybe it wasn't in this particular article then. I thought it was. So anyway, oh yeah, it is in this part somewhere. So anyway, they end up taking these idols, and Nimrod confronts them. But I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to share this article with you guys. I already did. Is that it right there? Nope, this is a different one. And so what happens is they end up cutting them all up, and then they get reported to Nimrod, and so then he tries to throw Moses and his brother, or Abraham and his brother rather, Haram, into the furnace. So I'm sorry I can't precisely find it in the article, but I read it earlier. It's somewhere in here, I think. And then they reach Melchizedek, the king of Salem. That was the other thing I wanted to show, because the Eclipse path of 2017 did pass through 7 Salems. And so with that relating to the fleeing of which is Babylon, I kind of, with that in Ezekiel 9:4, talking about going through and putting nexus on those that sigh and cry over the abominations done, etc., I must say it almost feels like we're in that same environment right now, and I just couldn't help but draw that parallel. So there again, there's Salem. So relates to the Exodus, because there was basically this Exodus, and then they again were led into captivity over and over again. So this is a trend we look at. This is another article, goes into greater detail, so I won't read this because there's a lot more text. But oh yeah, so this might have been what I was reading, I'm sorry. So yeah, here it is. Okay, one day Abram took a hatchet and destroyed all the idols except the largest central idol on which he placed the hatchet. He then told his father that when placing the food before the idols, they all reached and grabbed the food before the senior idol was able to reach the food, so he therefore chopped them up. The fact that Terah did not believe his son only highlighted the fact that Terah did not believe the idols were capable of any animate activity. So in other words, they were serving dead gods or whatever, and these are also what were stolen from Laban. Is that Laban? Can't remember how to pronounce his name.
I say it as Laban, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, when was that Jacob that was fleeing him? Or Isaac, can't remember which it was, but he had idols that they stole out of the house when they were leaving, and he got upset
Maybe
with them over
Joshua.
that too. So anyway, this got reported to Nimrod, and then he tried to throw them in the furnace. So here's where you can read about that. And so this not worshiping idols, not worshiping the image, following that trend of the world leader demanding that you do this thing and you won't do it, this is kind of leading up to what we'll be talking about here later, like a court case. There's a certain word that it's used to imply that as well. And then of course the elevation of the righteous, and then the royal lineage from him. So again, that pattern is going to repeat again, I think. So now, Terah was the name of his mother, correct? Abraham?
I don't know this one.
I'm sorry, I already X'd the article, but I'm pretty sure it was his mother. So anyway, Terah is also used in Irish lore here to denote the place from which the High King rules. So the tradition of this kind of carries over from the traditions that the Tuatha De Danann they brought with them from the Middle East. So just for anybody that's interested in those types of connections, I would encourage them to look into Terah, because I think it continues from the tradition of Abraham. Even though, of course, they went with the goddess, they did keep a lot of other things that were similar. So I think this might have been where the name Terah comes from, is because it was part of that kingly royal line we're reading about at the end of the last article. So there's the, if you want to read more about that. And this is, of course, leading up to something, so I know I'm rushing, but it's because I got several articles that are kind of about the same thing. And we're talking about the king in the field. So again, we got the sacred king. And so this is kind of what they referred to the king of Ireland as. But remember that we get the high priest and judge character in the Bible also. So many historical societies, the position of kingship carries a sacral meaning that is the identical with that of the high priest and judge, or Dan. The concept of theocracy is related, although a sacred king need not necessarily rule through his religious authority. Rather, the temporal position has a religious significance. Sir James George Fraser used the concept of the sacred king in his study, The Golden Bough, the title of which refers to the myth of Rex Nemorescens. Fraser gives numerous examples cited below and was an inspiration for the myth and ritual school. However, the myth and ritualist theory is disputed. Many scholars now believe that myth and ritual share a common paradigm, but not that one developed from the other. According to Fraser, the notion has prehistoric roots and occurs worldwide on Java, as in sub-Saharan Africa, with shaman kings credited with rainmaking and ensuring fertility and good fortune. The king might also be designed to suffer and atone for his people, meaning that the sacral king could be preordained victim in human sacrifice, either killed at the end of his term and position or sacrificed in a time of crisis. Wild stuff. And continues here, so from the Bronze Age in the Near East, the enthronement and anointment of a monarch is a central religious ritual reflected in the titles Messiah or Christ, which became separated from worldly kingship. Thus, Sargon of Akkad described himself as deputy of Ishtar. Interesting, just like the title Four Corners, the king of the four corners we've talked about. Just as the modern Catholic Pope takes the role of Vicar of Christ, kings are styled as shepherds from earliest times. The term applies to Sumerian princes such as Lugalbanda in the 3rd millennium BCE. The image of the shepherd combines the themes of leadership and the responsibility to supply food and protection, as well as superiority. As the mediator between the people and the divine, the sacral king was credited with special wisdom. We look to Solomon and Gilgamesh for examples, or vision, such as ornithromancy, which is a form of divination based on dreams. Interesting. Very much like augury, which, remember, augury was only employed with the use of birds in cases with kings, while the common person could use all manner of creatures. This is pretty interesting. So, anyway, let's continue on because I do need to get through these. So the Rex Nemorensis, or Latin King of Nemai, or King of the Grove, which denotes what is a grove. A sacred grove or sacred woods are any grove of trees that are a special religious importance to a particular culture. Sacred groves feature in various cultures throughout the world. They are important features of the mythological landscape and cult practice. Okay, so we continue here. This person was a priest of the goddess Diana, and in Italy by the shores of Lake Nemai, and she was known as Diana Nemorescens. The priesthood played a major role in the mythography of James George Frazer in The Golden Bough, and his interpretation exerted a lasting influence. So this is a past interpretation of what we might see in the future, very near future. Gary Wayne has talked about how the new religion was going to be the Irish Tuatha De Danann fairy type kingdom. So it kind of helps to explain that, so that's fascinating to me. All right, so let's continue on here. This is some show I wasn't really familiar with, but I ran across it while doing some research. Here's a hand fasting ceremony taking place. I don't normally see anybody tied up between a tree, but anyway, some show called The Almighty Johnsons. They do this in a grove, and this is supposed to be, like a final thing for Ragnarok or something. But when we look into Revelations, we see that this is very much a wedding, and so it could be that there's two different weddings going on simultaneously. Maybe there's, the one with the goddess versus the one with the father, kind of going on at the same time. I guess it kind of would make sense, but you got to remember the one's trying to usurp the kingdom. So just like the parable of the vineyard suggests, the spirit of Jezebel, which is the harlot spirit who wears a veil, and through possession, generational possession, when they marry their sisters and their sons and are having children with the mother, etc., which is what the Ishtar stuff does. The queen is married to the son, so it's to keep that spirit going through that bloodline. So we might see that kind of stuff cropping up, and sorry for the lurid detail, but it's hard to understand it without knowing that's how they kind of do things. And so I wanted to get down here to where it talks about the court case word. It might be this. Okay, no, it's not that one. Sorry, I had it picked out earlier and I lost it when I visited the page again. Well, I'm sorry. But there's a word in here where it refers to a court case, and it might be like where they're talking about here, where who will be able to stand. But you go to Zechariah 3, and they're all standing in a court case. If the word comes to me or I happen to stumble across it, I'll share it. But there's a particular word here. Maybe I made a mistake and it's on this one. No. Okay. Well, anyway, there's a particular word that refers to, I think it's this actually. It's in Proverbs. Strife, maybe. Yes, here we are. I'm so sorry. I was a little disorganized there. Okay, so in Proverbs 30, we have this word. Oh yeah, good to point out the golden bow. Phonetically, that does sound very much like it. And here it's saying rib. So, reeb, I guess is the correct way to say it. So it's talking here about strife, but it means specially dispute, controversy, case at law. And so why this is relevant is because, as this last verse of Proverbs suggests, it says, if you have been foolish in exalting yourself, which is the left-hand fruit of their labor, or if you have devised evil, put your hand over your mouth. So what do those people do? They make the sh symbol, right? So they put their hand over their mouth. And that may not be exactly what's implied here. Maybe it means the full hand. But they do, those who are up to no good, one of their fruits is that they do cover their mouth like they're doing. So it's one thing to point out. Were you going to say something?
I was just saying, yeah, I think that particular one might be called the sign of Harpocrates. Sign of Harpocrates.
Yes, correct. Yep. I think what it is, that once they realize that words matter a lot, you know, like every word has a lot of meaning, shouldn't just idly talk, but it's also that they know what's really going on and they're not supposed to talk. Spirit that they follow won't let them discuss that type of thing, I think is what it is. That's part of their deal or whatever. Anyway, off that topic, but this talks about a court case. So at the end here, for as churning of milk produces butter, the wringing of the nose produces blood, so the forcing of wrath produces strife. So it's going to produce a court dispute, case law. And so, like I said, if you go here to Zechariah 3, it talks about the court case with Satan and how he will be rebuked, and that's what's going to initiate the war in heaven, I think. So then these people will already be up there in court, and Satan's cast out. So the people that are actually saved won't be on earth to really do anything about the Antichrist, as it were. So all the true believers will be gone. So they'll probably blame that on like aliens or something. Who knows? But you do see a lot of weird TV shows about those people that disappear and come back or whatever. Like there's a show out there called Manifest, and there's 144,000 or something like that. Those shows are the 144, maybe. I don't know if there was quite as the 100. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to talk about.
Yeah, I watched some movie that was probably supposed to be scary. It was supposed to be scary, and these kids were taken up, of course, by aliens. But they thought they made it. It was supposed to be scary because it looked like the aliens were like turning them into, I don't know, killing them or doing something grotesque to them, turning them into like half robot stuff. Well, anyway, but of course, what the aliens were doing were improving them and sending them back down.
Oh yeah, upgrades. Right. That's what New Age people call them, upgrades. Okay, so I remember now why I had this one up, and I'm sorry that I was a little disorganized there. So Revelation 6, Doc was mentioning the bow. So let's find that real quick. That's 6:1, I think, at the very beginning. And so, sitting on a white horse, having a bow, talks on, yes. And if you recall, that is a word used to denote a simple cloth. Apparently, as the simplest fabric, a bow. It's like a ribbon. And so, what is that used for? And in the pagan rituals, they use that for marriage. So if you see here, that's a ribbon or a bow, and even a piece of fruit in the background, for good measure. But anyway, here you have these two being wed, and so in a way, it's kind of symbolic of this. And remember, this is the Rex Nemorius character, would be this person here, or the High King of the Tuatha Danann would be marrying the goddess spirit. So we're either going to see something similar, like with David, how David was married to Yahweh in that sense. We're either going to be seeing that as like the marriage of the Lamb, or some type of other thing, which is the Antichrist thing. So one way or the other, it's following this type of template, it looks like. And we've talked about it in the past, but just because we're tying up some loose ends, that's the link on hand fasting. And I only had a couple more things to share if you didn't mind. There was like this interesting video.
We're all still here, and we're plenty awake because this is nice early
Well, I'm
afternoon.
not.
Oh,
I'm
well,
so
I am.
tired. I'm sorry if it came out, but I kind of gain a little bit of energy throughout the show. I just get so tired. It's just hot. Yes,
Good time
tying
of
the
day for me
knot.
'cause I'm not tired
Good.
at all.
Doc Michael,
He's
you're
so smart.
tying the knot. That's right. Thanks, man. Okay, so it's just funny when you have heard things all your life and you never know where they come from, and then it's like suddenly, like Bullseye, for instance, you just, boom, there it is. And you just sit and think like, man, how did I get to this point and not know that? So this is Steve Fletcher. He has a YouTube channel, so he covered this. It's only a minute 54. But someone was watching this and recorded it as it was happening. So let's see if I can get the volume all the way up here. Pay very close attention to what's said. It's the guy that introduces him that they're really paying attention to, not so much what Trump himself says. Okay, here we go.
And to defend the integrity of our elections. And I have to say it, I just can't imagine him losing. He's got courage.
66.
He's an honest guy. He's an honest guy. And that gives him the courage. Your next U.S. Senator from Alabama, Mo Brooks. Thank you. I know Mo spoke, but come up and say just a quick word, Mo. He's doing very poorly in the polls. He's only up at about 90%. Come on, Mo.
Thank you, Mr. President, and future President of the United States of America. I'm pleased to announce the second coming of President Donald J. Trump.
Oh, no, no, no.
Thank you, Mo.
Where is my,
So Mo is a fearless warrior.
no,
Meanwhile,
no.
My Pillow has a 66% discount.
Yep. Which is something he could have
We
controlled.
rebuke it and renounce that in the name of Jesus. You are not the second coming of Christ. That is a farce. Did you hear that, Bride? The second
I love how
coming.
raw this
What
is.
a farce. I rebuke it in the name of Jesus. I cast that down. That spirit of Antichrist, I cast you down right now. You are nowhere near, sir, compared to our Jesus Christ. Terrible. I rebuke that.
So that was in Coleman, Alabama. So it could be that they're setting things up. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. Conveniently, there's a Enter the Stars did a video on this thing. The manifest. And they were putting X's on the doors to denote if people had the plague. That's also going on in Afghanistan right now. They say that if you have a daughter, you have to put an X on your door, and they just come and collect them. And if you don't, they'll come and kill everybody. And it's just this signs of the times, things to watch for. But anyway, be prepared, because with the latest thing that happened, they might try to do a 25th Amendment thing on old Sleepy Joe. So
I think that's what they've been planning, because when Nancy Pelosi talked about the 25th Amendment while Trump was still in, I don't think she was talking about Trump at all.
Yeah, they're just planting the seeds. Yeah, because anybody would go right along with it when it was Trump. And that's the problem with government. Once they get a power, they never let it go. Just like that quote mentioned to you earlier, might have been Truman, I think, that said it. But it was like nothing more permanent than a temporary government program.
Yeah, that's right.
It just will never
Never
go away.
Just like, it was supposed to be temporary when they stopped backing the dollar with gold. That was supposed to be just a temporary thing because everybody was asking for their dollars. And here we are 50 years later.
Yep. So, but if you want to get some gold backs, check
I've
out
got
Lady
them.
Liberty's
Mm-hmm.
gold stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how I'll be doing raffles in the future, but we'll figure something out.
Well, it's been a pleasure, folks. I really appreciate you spending time with us. That's pretty much everything I had for today, but I was already kind of planning something for next week, so
well, we
I'll be
appreciate
sure to share it.
the work and time that you put into this. Next week, I think I should be good to go on Saturday because, school's back in session, so we're not going to be doing vacations, and the fair is gone, so we're not doing that. We were doing the fair. We had 2 vacations, the fair, all this stuff going on right at the end of summer. So now the school's back in, by the way, just an interesting note, the public schools here, after they had hundreds of parents show up against it, still decided, at first they said you didn't have to wear masks, and then they decided last minute yesterday that the public schools would have to wear masks, and I don't think that we're at risk with our school because it's a private school, and I haven't received any kind of email about that. But the sad thing is my girls were in Catholic school, if you guys recall, and the Catholic school basically does what the school district decides. So when the school district decides to do masks, the Catholic school is going to do it. I am so glad that I'm seeing the true fruits of, I know that I understand that the Catholicism problem. But at the time, it was, I put my kids in what I thought would be a decent private school. Well, first I find out back then that they're teaching Common Core, so I'm like, well, that's horrible. But then they're willing to close down and be afraid and mask up and do everything that the public school district is doing. Why would a private school charging $500 a kid a month do what the public schools do? It's just outrageous. So anyway, I'm really glad there's some blessings that have come from this. My kids are in a much better school. It's a small school that teaches Abeka, and they're not going to force us to mask because we're private. We're not part of the school district, and they don't go along necessarily with what the school district does as far as I know. So if, though, by chance they turn that around and say they want our kids to mask, I'll ask for a full refund of my over $9,000 that I paid them, and I will hire tutors. Because I'm not a good homeschool. I could homeschool with the tutors probably, and that would work, but it's just a clown world, you guys, and I wish we didn't have to worry about these things, but we got to stand strong and persevere like the book of Jude says, and if anyone thinks of it, please pray for me because I'm struggling. I'm stressed. But we appreciate all the work you're doing and that you'll come and bring us this knowledge and make it, I love that you hit and revisit things over and over because then that's when it starts to click and make more sense to us and we can see what you're seeing. So good job. We appreciate it.
Yeah, there are a lot of patterns. It's like a tapestry. The same thread gets woven several times before you start to see the picture. Yeah.
Yep, and if we didn't have the good people in the chat that join us and watch, we wouldn't have anyone to share this awesome knowledge with. So please share. I know that not all of us have much reach when we share things, but just even one person, if we could bring one soul to the Lord, one questioning person, one person on the fence, that would be worth all of the time that we've spent just to have one person. And pray for the troll, even the guy that's been trolling. Apparently there's something important enough about this channel that he has worked very hard to infiltrate and try and take down. So let's pray for even our enemies.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a unfortunate thing, but there's got to be a reason for it. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess that's it for today. So we'll close her down, and till next week, I appreciate you, and peace and shalom, and love to you all. Have a great day.
Farewell, many meows.
Peace. Good night. Good day.
called me to mercy. But fear said to I ran for my life, sailed across the